Book 4, Chapter 1, Section 1. Pell, 10-10-52, 1100 hours. The station was calmer. Queries to legal affairs had begun, and that was a good indication that the tension on the station was easing. The input file was full of queries about military actions, threatened lawsuits, indignant protests from merchants on station who felt damages were due them for the continued curfew on the docks. There were protests from the merchanters' ship Finity's End regarding a missing youth, the object of much anxiety, in the theory that one of the military crews could have swept him up in impressment. In fact, the youth was probably in some station sleepover with a current infatuation from some other ship. Comp was quietly carrying out a card use search. Not an easy matter, for merchanter passes were not in such frequent use as stationer cards. Damon entertained hopes of finding him safe, refused to take alarm until the record search had come in. He had seen too many of these come across his desk only to discover a young merchanter who had a falling out with his family or drunk too much to listen to vid. The whole thing was more security's problem at this level, but security had its hands full, its men and women standing guard duty with haggard eyes and short tempers. L.A. could at least punch comp buttons and take up some of the clerical work. Another killing in queue. It was depressing, and there was absolutely nothing they could do but note the fact. There was a report of a guard under suspension, accused of smuggling a case of Downer wine into queue. Some officer had decided the problem should not wait, when it was likely there was petty smuggling going on everywhere among the merchanters out there. The man was being made an example. He had 3 postponed hearings in the afternoon. They were likely to be postponed again, because the council was meeting and the Board of Justices was involved in that. He decided to agree with the defender to that effect, and put the message through, reserving the afternoon instead for the disposal of more queries that the lower levels of the office could not handle. And having disposed of that, he swung his chair about and looked back at Josh, who sat dutifully reading a book on the auxiliary unit and trying not to look as bored as he ought to be. "Hey," Damon said. Josh looked at him. "Lunch? We can take a long one and work out at the gym." "We can go there?" "It's open." Josh turned the machine off. Damon rose, leaving everything on hold, walked over and gathered up his jacket, felt after cards and papers to be absolutely sure. Mazian's troops still stood guard here and there, as unreasonable as they ever had been. Josh likewise put on a jacket. They were about the same size, and it was borrowed. Lending, Josh would accept, if not giving, augmenting his small wardrobe so that he could come and go in the offices without undue attention. Damon held the door button, instructed the office outside to delay calls for 2 hours. "Back at 1, the secretary acknowledged, and turned to take an incoming call. Damon motioned Josh on through into the outer corridor. "A half hour at the gym," Damon said, "then a sandwich at the concourse. I'm hungry." "Fine," Josh said. He looked nervously about him. Damon looked too, and felt uneasy. The corridors had very little traffic even yet. People were just not trusting of the situation. Some troops stood, distantly visible. "The troops should all be pulled back," he said to Josh, "by the end of this week. Our own security is taking over entirely in white. Green maybe in 2 days. Have patience. We're working on it." "They'll still do what they want," Josh said somberly. Did Mallory, after all? A shadow came on Josh's face. "I don't know. When I think about it, I still don't know." "Believe me." They had reached the lift, alone. A trooper stood at the corner of another corridor, a fact in the tail of the eye, nothing remarkable. He pushed the code for the core. "Had a bit of good news come in this morning. My brother called up, said things are smoothing out down there." "I'm glad," Josh murmured. The trooper moved suddenly, came toward them. Damon looked. Others further down the hall started moving, all of them at a near run. "Abort that!" the first trooper snapped, reaching them. She reached for the panel herself. "We're on a call." "I can get you a priority," Damon said, to be rid of them. The move indicated trouble. He thought of them shoving the stationers around on other levels. "Do it." He took his card from his pocket, thrust it into the slot, and coded his priority. The lights went red. The rest of the troopers arrived as the car did, and armored shoulders pushed them aside as the troops all crowded in, leaving them there. The car whisked away, non-stop for whatever destination they had coded from inside. There was not a trooper left in the corridor. Damon looked at Josh, whose face was pale and set. "We take the next car," Damon said with a shrug. He was himself disturbed, and quietly coded in Blue 9. "Eileen?" Josh asked. "Want to get down there," he said. "You come with me. If there's trouble, it's likely to end up on the dock side. I want to get down there." The car delayed in coming. He waited several moments and finally used his card a second time, a second priority. The lights went red, signifying a car on priority call, then blinked, signifying nothing available. He slammed his fist against the wall, cast a second look at Josh. It was far to walk, easier to wait for a car to free itself, quicker in the long run. He walked over to the nearest comm unit, keyed in on priority, while Josh stood waiting by the lift doors. "Hold the car if it comes," he said to Josh. "Punch the call in. Comm Central, this is Damon Constantine on emergency. We're seeing troops pulling out on the run. What's going on?" There was a long delay. "Mr. Constantine," a voice came back. "This is a public comm unit." "Not at the moment, Central. What's going on?" "General alert. Emergency posts, please." "What's going on?" Comm had cut itself off. A measured siren began to sound. Red lights began to pulse in the overheads. People came out of the offices, looked at one another as if hoping it was drill or mistaken. His own secretary was outside, far down the hall. "Get back inside!" he shouted. "Get those doors shut!" People moved backward, retreated into offices. The red light by Josh's shoulder was still blinking, indicating no car available. Every car in the system must have jammed up down at the docks. "Come on," he said to Josh, motioned toward the end of the hall. Josh looked confused and he strode over, caught Josh by the arm. "Come on!" There were others in the hall farther on. He snapped an order at them, cleared them out, not blaming them. There were others besides Constantine's who had loved ones scattered about the station. Children in school and nurseries, people in hospital. Some ran ahead of them, refusing orders. A station security agent shouted out another order to halt. Ignored, laid a hand on his pistol. "Let them go!" Damon snapped. "Let be!" "Sir." The policeman's face relaxed from a grimace of panic. "Sir, I'm not getting anything over comm." "Keep that gun holstered. You learn those reflexes from the troops. Stand your post. Calm people down. Help them where you can. There's a scramble going on. Could even be drill. Ease up." "Sir." They walked on toward the emergency ramp, in the quiet hall. Not running. A Constantine could not run, spread panic. He walked, trying to hold off panic in himself. "No time," Josh said under his breath. "By the time the alert gets here, the ships are on us. If Mazian's been caught at dock." "Got militia and 2 carriers out from station," Damon said, and remembered all at once who Josh was. He caught his breath, gave him a desperate look, met a face as worried as his own. "Come on," he said. They reached the emergency ramp, heard shouting, loud as they opened the doors. Runners were headed in down it from other levels. "Slow down!" Damon yelled at those who passed him, and they did, several turns. But a few became many, and suddenly there were more coming up, the noise increasing, more running. The transport system jammed everywhere, and all the levels pouring into the spiral well. "Take it easy!" Damon shouted, grabbed shoulders physically and tried to slow it. But the rush accelerated, bodies jamming in, men, women, and children. Impossible now even to get out of it. The doors were full of people trying to go down. "The docks," he heard shouted. It spread like fire with the red light of alarm burning in the overhead. The assumption that had been seething in Pell since the troops came. That someday it would come. That the station was under attack. That evacuation was underway. The mass pressed down, and there was no stopping it.